So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Pam Blackburn. I'm on the alumni board at Terry. So happy to be here with all of you. I know some of you have made a day of it and spending all of your time with Terry today. So we certainly do love that. So on behalf of the alumni board, thank you guys for coming today. And I get the honor of introducing your speaker today. So Jay is the EVP and Chief Information and Technology Product Officer at Clario. For those of you who don't know what that is, the global data and technology company that minimizes risk associated with clinical trials. Jay's been around. So a couple of things he was with Quick Creek, Rackspace, TransPerfect, and even Earthlink for those who want to think back a long time ago. For those of us who remember all of that. Jay is very committed and dedicated to giving back. Terry is one of those for him, and evidenced by all the energy that he does contribute in that space for us. He's elected on multiple community relations boards, Catholic Charities of Atlanta being one, and we certainly are glad to have him here today. He is a Bulldog in political science and his master's degree from the University of Georgia, lives in Atlanta with his 3 sons. I think one of them is maybe with us today. So he's got one third represented today. So thank you all for being here. And Jay, I'll give you the podium.
All right. Can you hear me okay? All right, let me jack this sucker up a little bit. All right, thank you. Appreciate the very kind intro. It is great to be here. I love anything I can do with Terry. You know, I'm a hashtag Go Terry, Go Dogs kind of guy. I am a graduate of EMBA 1. For those of you who, I don't know, which EMBA are we on now? Do we stop counting after a certain point? We don't count anymore, so it's not EMBA like 28 or whatever? Okay, you see, that's just mean. Yeah, EMBA 1, which was the first ever inaugural executive MBA at Terry. And it was a privilege to be part of that inaugural class. But I'm going to talk a little bit today about 3 primary things. 1, talk a little bit about the clinical trial space. What is a clinical trial? How clinical trials are run. I don't know that a lot of people truly understand what's involved in a clinical trial. A little bit about my role and the role data, technology, and AI. You can't get anywhere today without those 2 letters infusing literally everything that you do. And then a little bit about my career journey and how I ended up with such a convoluted title like Executive Vice President, Chief Information Technology and Product Officer. And I also own marketing and corporate communications, which of course all naturally goes together. Totally related. All right. So Clario, boy, that's a lot of purple. I did not design that. It was before I took over marketing, for the record. So I had nothing to do with that. Here's our agenda, which we'll talk about. Our mission statement: empowering faster, more informed drug development through differentiated technology and data intelligence solutions. Why does that matter? Which we'll get to in a minute. We're a global company. We handle global trials. They may always make me put this in. What is a clinical trial supposed to do? It is trying to prove the safety and the efficacy of a therapeutic, a molecule, a drug, right? Is it safe, and does it do what it's supposed to do? So whether it's a large pharma, a biotech, et cetera, you're trying to prove that it is safe and effective. And the way that you do that is through rigor and data. Data from patients, clearly. So once a trial, it has already gone through discovery, if appropriate, animal testing, those types of things. So now it is at like a phase 1 or early phase, meaning humans are being brought in. Phase 1 usually is a healthy volunteer. And the sizes are really dependent upon the type of trial. Rare disease trial, you would likely see a smaller number. They're very harder to find if you're in like a musculoskeletal disease or those types of things. It would be actually very hard to recruit patients, so your numbers are going to be a little bit smaller. Oncology tends to be the broadest numbers, or perhaps a vaccine trial, those types of things. And it goes through the process. And then after phase 3, is when it's granted authorization, and it goes to phase 4, which is tracking it post-release. In order to do that, you have to have data. Clario, that's what we do. What we do is clinical data endpoint collection at the source, meaning at the patient or the clinical trial site. Our customer number is a little bit deceiving because these are a combination of large pharma, biotechs, and CROs, or a contract research organization. And so there's a multiplier effect because a large pharma client likely has a lot of trials, right? So at any given time, we're running approximately 3,000 active trials. And just to give you a sense for scale, you're talking about millions of patients in probably tens of thousands of clinical trial sites all around the globe using different types of technology. Well, what kind of technology do you use? Your whole point, we're going to get to that in a second, is to submit a regulatory grade package to the FDA, the EMA, PIMDA, or anything like that, right? And it has to be done in a very controlled, secure way. You're audited constantly. It's a highly regulated space. And so you need trust to source from the point of collection through interpretation of the data all the way to delivery through the FDA. So that puts a significant amount of burden on both the process and the people, but also the technology that captures that throughout the. And this is a little example of how complex a clinical trial might be. At any given time, a large phase 3 trial will have 3.5 to 4 million endpoints that are being collected as part of the trial. And we're going to talk a little bit about what that might mean. What is an endpoint? What does that data look like? We try to bring a little bit of simplicity to a very complex environment. Used to be in the day, before technology, you would do this on paper. You would have a federated, you would do it in the local hospital. You wouldn't have centralized interpretation or collection at all. You would work through hospital networks. You'd have notebooks and diagrams and charts, and everything would be, mailed back and forth. Today, obviously, we live in a much, much different environment. Not only can we do it digitally, but we can leverage tools like AI, et cetera, to improve the process. If you've ever heard of a CRO, we are not a CRO. If you think about companies like PPD, Parexel, Syneos, and others, they tend to be frenemies in the sense that we do compete with them, perhaps for certain products. But for the most part, they are the orchestrators of a clinical trial. They're the ones doing patient recruitment. They're managing the sites. They're doing all of that on behalf of a sponsor. Then we get involved, right? And so we either contract directly with the CRO, which is about 25%, or with the sponsor themselves, which is about 75%, roughly. Either way, we're doing this, roughly the same thing. We're broken into 3 business units by modality. And really, this is how pharma thinks about things. And so we've structured our organization in that fashion. And I'm going to show you some examples of this in action here in just a second. Imaging, which is what you would think it is, CT scans, MRIs, X-rays, all of those things. If you think about a cancer drug, you want to see that the tumor is shrinking or not shrinking, right? Because a lot of times pharma, the decision that they're trying to make is that if this thing doesn't work and we've got to go back to the lab, we want to kill the trial as fast as humanly possible. Trials cost millions of dollars per week, and they want to make informed decisions as quickly as possible so that they can either try again or scuttle a project or something like that. ECOA, Electronic Clinical Outcome Assessment. ECOA studies or ECOA data points are trying to bring objectivity to subjective measures. What do I mean by that? Pain scales, quality of life indications. How do you feel today? How's the pain? How many times have you coughed? Those types of things. What time did you wake up? Or were you tired when you woke up? All of these things are using very regulated instruments, scientifically validated survey instruments, so there's consistency across the study. But at the end of the day, what you're trying to do is bring subjectivity into an objective measure. Digital physiology is broken into two, respiratory and then cardiac. Nearly every study has a cardiac safety component early on. Is this going to cause a cardiac event? Any impact on the heart? Those types of things, no matter what kind of drug it is, generally speaking, very early on, it's going to have a cardiac safety component. Respiratory is what you think it is, blowing into a respiratory device. If you think about an emphysema drug, if you think about a bronchitis drug, you think about anything like that, you're going to measure lung function along the way. A little bit more about each one, medical imaging, some examples. We do everything from where we start is at the point of collection. So if you're getting your MRI, those data results then make their way to us for interpretation. And then we have a network of radiologists that will look at all of that information. We're going to talk a little bit about AI and the role that that plays in just a minute. But everything from MRIs, CT scans, DEXA scans, all of these things. And essentially what you're trying to measure is tumor progression, things like that, brain atrophy, and nearly every oncology trial, or at least a majority of them, have this as an endpoint. It's primary in a majority, right? It's the measure of whether or not that drug is successful. Did it shrink the tumor? Did it make the mass go away? Did it stop progression, right? That's your primary endpoint. ECOA are things like this. You'll hear weird terms. Everybody in health, every industry has their own terms. We know that, right? I mean, you get into life sciences and you have a lexicon right at the beginning. Well, do you know what a ClinRO is? Do you know what you don't, but I mean, they're pretty self-explanatory. So a patient-reported outcome might be something where we give you a device as you're going through the trial. It's a closed, think iPad or Android device, where every day you go through and you fill out a survey or on a regular schedule. Hey, I took my meds. I feel this way. I don't feel as tired. All of these types of things. So that is a patient-reported outcome. We have nearly 1 million devices out in the field that we manage that are part of trials all around the world. They have to be translated into over 100 different languages, and they have to be consistent. So I can't have patients in North Africa responding differently to patients in Western Europe. You're striving for consistency. So translation is paramount. The way that you collect the data is paramount. What they see on the screen even is paramount. For instance, something as simple as zoom in and out was a big deal in this technology, because if you zoom in, what's the first thing that happens? The choices at the bottom disappear. So if I have an eye issue and I'm filling out my survey, I can zoom in, that's great. And the bottom, guess what? Nobody ever answers number 5 because number 5 fell out. And so making sure that things like dark mode, zoom in and out, all of those things work first time, every time. Clinician-reported outcome, performance outcome, which would be walks, 2-minute walk, 5-minute walk, 10-minute walk, all of those types of things, wearing a device in clinic, and then observational outcomes. Lastly, cardiac and respiratory, which I talked a little bit about. So you're trying to determine, A, that this is safe. The combination of the drug and anything else they're taking doesn't cause any issues. And usually it's in an early phase where you're doing a cardiac collection. Respiratory is a little harder than you think it is. So if you've ever blown into a spirometer, like a real one, it is hard. You usually have somebody in the clinic yelling at you, right? You're like, oh my God, you're being coached because you're supposed to give maximum effort, right? They're trying to measure the way you breathe in and out. And it's not that little ball that goes up that's super easy to do. It is, you've got to like empty your lungs. And the problem is what you get is you have people that one day, they will say, I gave maximum effort, and it's maybe only 80% of their effort. In other cases, they do give 100%, and all of a sudden it looks like the drug's not working. So you're trying to get that variants out because you don't want false signals, right? I mean, oh my gosh, the drug's not working. All these patients are, are suddenly having a much harder time breathing, which, may or may not be the case. So technology, certainly there's a platform, or we talked a little bit about data collection. We look at the way that we collect data kind of three different ways. There's the scientific expertise. We are not just a tech company that throws out a platform. We're not SaaS, right? So when you, quote, buy Clario, you're buying a solution. You're buying our scientific expertise in consulting. I say consulting, but we're going to consult on certain things, trial design. You're trying to prove your drug is differentiated. Think about GLP-1s. Well, there's a few in the market already. So if you're fourth to market, you're trying to prove different. You're not just trying to prove safety and efficacy. You're trying to prove differentiation. Like, well, ours only needs one shot every month instead of one a week. Or mine's oral. Or this one is once every quarter. Or this one causes less muscle wasting than option B. So we will help with that, along the way as you get into trial setup. What are you trying to prove? And we'll match endpoints to help you collect all of that. The other two are AI and data science, which I think makes sense, and I'm going to give you some examples. And then lastly is enterprise-grade technology. Technology can't go down. You're running trials 24/7, 365 in 120 countries around the world. You have people depending on you. If you're involved in a clinical trial and you schlep an hour to go into a site to get, to have a clinician-reported outcome, and the technology just isn't working, I keep that always in the top of my head when I'm talking to my team, because that is a tough situation, right? Hey, I've gotten daycare, I've gotten childcare, I've gotten somebody to watch the dog, I've, took off work. I show up and the crappy system's not up. That's terrible. Even worse would be patient loss or patient enrollment. In rare disease trials, patients are worth a lot of money. Recruiting them is hard. And if they're just like, you know what, I don't even want to be a part of this, you guys are a clown operation, the site doesn't have the system ready, I can't even enroll, whatever, that's troubling. And it costs the sponsors a lot of money. So making sure our technology is enterprise grade, robust, and always keeps the patient and the site top of mind. I'm not going to bore you with this tech stack kind of summary. I promise you we're not going to go down that rabbit hole, but just some of the key elements of our overall tech stack that really have differentiated us. Accelerated study startup. Sponsors look for things like, now that we've signed a deal, we've given you the protocol, we've got to get all this technology up and running. The faster we can do that, the faster we can start the trial. For Clario, it's a faster path to revenue as well, because we can start charging for all of that data collection. But we don't want to be the long pole for any kind of trial setup, whether it's a technology failure, a security issue, it takes us 16 weeks to set up a study instead of 8, or whatever. It's got to be usable. We'll talk about data and AI in a minute. It's got to be secure. So as you would imagine, cybersecurity is pinned to the top of my priority list. You never, ever, if you have a CIO or CTO gets up in front of you and says, we're secure, you have to count the days that sucker's going to not have a job. Because that complacency will always come back and bite you in the rear end. I get paid a little bit to be paranoid, which is cool, because I'm that way anyway. But always looking over my shoulder for deadbeats like that guy. But really squirrely eyes. I don't know what's up with that. And then AI algorithms. So I'm going to give you some examples here in a minute. We collect a lot of data. So we talked a little bit about all the devices and all the ways that we collect data. It goes through interpretation and integration, but we still have to have traceability from the point I collected it, so that I collected it from you in Germany on a Sunday at 2 p.m. I've got to know it's you. All of this data is pseudonymized. We do not know who J. Ferro is, but we know patient 12874. And that separation allows us security and trust with our with our sponsors. Only they can decrypt that relationship. And it gives us a little bit of flexibility for how we store and what we can do with the data. We apply AI and ML, and I'll show you some examples. But what we end up with is a clinical grade, regulatory grade clinical data asset. So I want you to think about a medical image that has had a radiologist look at it. So you have all the metadata. You have the image itself, but you also have the metadata and all of the interpretation longitudinally. What does that mean? Through the life of the study, over time is what that means. So it's not just Jay came in on a Tuesday. Jay's been part of this same study, and we can track patient 1348 for 3 years. And that is extremely valuable. It's a durable moat against competitors, but it's also a rich playground for AI development. So AI generally falls into 2 buckets at Clario. It falls into the machine learning and AI-assisted capabilities. We got our start early in 2018. We had our first scientifically validated algorithm. Today, as of last year, we had 50. Today, we have over 120 scientifically validated AI algorithms in production. What does a scientifically validated AI algorithm do? I'll show you, I promise. Gen AI, believe it or not, the AI did not start with ChatGPT, although you would think it did. Large language models and Gen AI, though, are a game changer, I think, for every company today. We do have our own proprietary Gen AI engine and machine learning engine. Machine learning, it is called Aquarius, patent pending. And then on the Gen AI side, it is called Claire. See what we did there? Clario? All right. You never let tech people name things, by the way. Never, ever do that. That's terrible. A little bit more about that. I actually just kind of want to show you some of this stuff in action. But look, for internal, AI enables things like you would think. So I'll give you an example of, we created an AI engine that does cross-sell opportunities. So as a protocol comes into the company, we have Claire will take apart the protocol. If you've ever looked at a scientific protocol, this is not like a 3-page RFP. It is a very complex document and looks for cross-sell opportunities and wants to make sure that we have a probability score of, hey, they only are asking about cardiac, but really we think there's an ECOA component here or a medical imaging component, and we really ought to have that conversation with them. We launched this in Q2. It's integrated with Salesforce, and it already has resulted in fairly material improvement in our cross-selling, which is a huge opportunity of white space for us. That's just one thing. And then you think about all the internal tools, chatbots, et cetera, niche or what you call kind of snackable AI, where it is dedicated to HR. I throw all my HR documentation in. I train it a little bit over time, and now I have a closed LLM that people can ask, hey, what is our PTO policy? What do I do for whatever? And these are things that are already in production. Yesterday's AI versus today's AI. Just to give you an example, we had one forming over there today, over 120. 1,600 studies are actively using some form of AI. We continue to make this an investment. It's one of our growth pillars. You can see another version there. For instance, the difference that it's making. In medical imaging, what used to be completely manual now is nearly all automated. So if you think about identifying a tumor or a lesion on an MRI or tracking MRI slices over time, you would have a radiologist clicking through, annotating things, making notes. Today, all of that is done before he or she even sees the file. The image is oriented, which I'll show you in just a second. Another, patient privacy. Believe it or not, MRIs can be reverse engineered. So we've redacted them and have done facial blurring. In the past, you could actually take this, reverse engineer it, and use AI to find out that it's Kara. You think I didn't see you back there, didn't you? Yeah, I see you back there. And then all the usual things like PII, PHI, redaction, those types of things. More advanced are things like lung function or lung identification or organ identification. Hey, we were expecting a lung and we got a kidney. Or we only got 98% of the lung, we need 100%. Or you uploaded Kevin and it was supposed to be Jay, that's the wrong patient entirely, which is usually a bad thing. All of those types of things before the radiologist even sees it. So what is that? What is the knock-on effect? More efficiency. I don't have to scale my resources linearly because the radiologists are seeing a higher curated form of information once they get it. They're not kicking it back and you're not playing, wow, this doesn't look like the same guy, about all this other stuff. So we can do all of that in seconds as the images are being uploaded. This actually would normally be like a 3D zoom in, zoom out in real time where you can look at tumor progression in oncology, and we can begin to make guesses on impact that the drug is going to make. So you can actually begin to look at things like, based on what we've seen, based on other patients, based on all of these other things, we can actually see potentially what may or may not happen. So pretty powerful stuff. I spared you the video of this one, but this is a colonoscopy. You ever had one of those suckers? You probably don't want to see this because it's going to, bring back bad impact or bad memories. But what we can actually do is we can actually check for ulcerative colitis and other issues in real time as that video is being revealed. So, we can score that you can see here where you can score the likelihood that anything seen in this video is or is not a disease using AI. Cardiac, a little bit different. Cardiac really focuses more around quality, being able to detect the quality of the ECG read, making sure you have quality data along the way, that things weren't bad reads. You can uncover trends and root cause analysis. You can even potentially detect what we call anomalous behavior or fraud. Believe it or not, there are bad actors in the space. And so, I could have you as a clinical site manager hooking the leads up on yourself 5 times because you're getting paid to run a clinical trial and being like, no, this is all our data. It's totally good. And unfortunately, that kind of bad acting happens. Now, we report it. We clearly leave it to the sponsor and the site to act on it. But that type of anomalous behavior. And then other things like, hey, we're starting to see adverse impact. We can see that faster. Same thing with respiratory. We can actually spot those irregular things right away in near real time. In the past, you would show up at a clinical trial site. We would yell at you while you were trying to blow into this damn thing. And you would go home and only to be told 72 hours, 48, a week later, the read wasn't good. We've uploaded it. We've sent it to overread by a licensed physician, and he or she came back and said, wasn't a clean read. So now we've leveraged AI at the point of collection where I can tell you while you're in clinic that it was a good or bad read, and whether it was even you, which is huge. For a sponsor, that's really great because now I have less patient dropout, I have less fraud, I know I'm getting higher quality data. For the site, it reduces burden. But for you as the patient, the last thing you want to do is come back in and do the same damn thing over again. All right. Gen AI, we talked about. We have a lot of work going on in every area. I like to say, you've probably read an article not too long ago, maybe 3 weeks ago. It said 93% of AI initiatives are not bearing fruit. Right? You saw that article? Where it was like 93% are not bearing fruit. That is not Clario. I think the thing that has made us so successful is we fail fast, and we are willing to be wrong, and we are attacking real use cases. So our proofs of concept are very well supported, right? We let people iterate. And then once we find something that actually has value, we scale it fast. So it's the old adage, think big, start small, scale fast. I think too many people try to boil the ocean as if AI is this wonderful silver bullet that's going to solve all ills. And they stare at it and they're like, oh, I got so much data, and how are we going to clean the data? And I'm going to spend a year thinking about the data. BS. Start small. Start with your HR department. Start with contract analysis. We've got 500 contracts. That's ready to go. Very little prep has to be done into getting something like that ready for an LLM or for any kind of generative work. We do it responsibly. So when I joined, we kicked off our AI responsible use in executive committee. I think it's so important if you're doing AI to do it the right way and not make it a technology project. It is not a technology experiment. All right. So we created this in conjunction with my head of quality, my head of legal, my general counsel, my chief medical officer, my chief security officer. And we report everything and all development up to our CEO. So everybody is aware of what we're doing, how we're training, how we're trying to remove bias, making sure the guardrails from development all the way to scientific validation, we never take our eye off the ball. So I encourage you, if you have AI going, get other people involved. It may seem like red tape, like, I got to get that clown from HR. I don't want to do that. I promise you, grease the skids early. It may seem like it's early red tape, but it really speeds things along. So a little bit about, that is way too big. A little bit about my background and how I ended up with this convoluted title. I drew the short straw and I lost the bet. No. I joined Clario as CIO in December of 2020. Middle of COVID, nobody was going anywhere. They had just had it was called ERT back then, different name. They had just had a cyber incident and were doing their largest acquisition in company history. Great time to join. So I let the CEO, who was my boss at Earthlink, way back in the Stone Age, and he was like, I could use your help. I was CIO of the Quikrete companies at the time, here in Atlanta. And I said, no, that sounds terrible. That sounds awful. Like, why am I gonna, I've never even heard of this company. And he wore me down and I joined, and boy, am I glad I did, because I think I love what we do. I love the way we do it. When we closed the BioClinica acquisition in April of 21, I took on the CTO role. And the distinction really was internal IT was the CIO, security, infrastructure, all of that. CTO was product development, enterprise architecture, data and analytics, all of those types of things. I was promoted to CITPO in 22, where I took on product management, which in the past had been federated in each of our business units. We unified all of technology, product, and R&D in 22. So I took over the role of product as well. And then last year, I took over marketing and comms. I think primarily because my boss, who is amazing dude to work for, was like, I just don't even know what to do with it. Have you ever run marketing before? And I said, yep, for about 1 year, again, at Earthlink. And he goes, well, you got more experience than I do. Welcome to marketing and corporate communications. And so it's gone exceedingly well. I have a great team. I learn more from them than they do from me. And what I contribute to that is I give them air cover and support and executive leadership and give them the stage. A lot of people shortchange marketing, especially in an environment like where we do. Your whole pool of customers is probably 1,000 at the macro level. So you're like, marketing, how much really? And people don't appreciate the important work. I know I'm a fan, and it's really made a huge difference. And so making sure marketing had a seat at the table is super important. And then there's my bio. I said yes to all of these different roles. Primarily, well, actually, I'll get to that in a second. Who else am I? I'm a cancer widower. I lost my first wife, Priscilla, in 2007 to cervical cancer. If you know me, you know I spent 5 years as CIO of the American Cancer Society. It was a passion role. Certainly, they pay you. But I had somebody ask me, do you do that for free? I'm like, I'm not a volunteer CIO. What the hell do you think I'm doing? I got bills to pay, man. I got 3 kids. What are you talking about? But she was amazing. She was a Georgia Bulldog as well. We met in undergrad. As important are the 3 lights of my life, or 4 now, lights of my life. My sons, Trey, James, and Brian. James is right here in the front. Put your hand up, boy. There you go. That's my middleman, and because he's here, he's the only one that's now in my will. The other two are dead to me, and we'll get nothing but a swift kick when I go. So James, it's all yours, pal. $138 and a bunch of debt coming your way. No, and then lightning strikes twice. I had a chance to work with my now beautiful wife at the American Cancer Society many, many years ago. We were just colleagues, and toward the tail end of COVID, we reconnected. Turns out she was single, I was single, fell madly in love, and realized that lightning does indeed strike twice. And I'd like to say that once again, I've outkicked my coverage. As good men, I think, always have to admit that they outkick their coverage, and she is absolutely my better half. Who else am I? A diehard dog. Hey, that's you, boy. You see that? I don't know what's up with that pinky there, but you're not drinking. Boy out there drinking like a toast of shampoo. And then for those of you who remember, what game was that? The really cold game. Was that Tech? That was the 8 overtime game. This past one. Yeah, go Dogs. Go Dogs, yeah. Hopefully we show up in the first quarter this weekend. So my journey started off in technology. And I'll be honest, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I got out of Georgia with a political science degree, which of course is the perfect entry into a high-tech world. I was going to go to law school at Emory. And I was dating Priscilla, who would be my wife at that time. She went straight to work. And I was like, man, law school sounds terrible right now. I'd absolutely, my dad, of course, had long cut me off and was like, well, you better find some insurance and some money. And so I was a hobbyist back in the early 90s in technology. I knew how to program. I knew about technology. It was fun for me, but I never in a million years thought about doing it. It was the dawn of the internet, just to age myself. So the World Wide Web was a really big thing. The information superhighway was just, I mean, this was like Windows 95 time. You know, you're hearing the Start Me Up theme. And I said, all right. So I took a first job doing tech support, and I fell in love. I literally am being yelled at all day, but I'm fixing computers and taking help desk calls. And I called my wife, my girlfriend at the time, and said, they're paying me to play with toys. This is amazing. And I never looked back. I never looked back. So I get asked all the time, you know, is this really what you're super passionate about? And I think I realized early on that really passion comes from like being good at something, and people say, oh, follow your passion. I'm like, follow your talent. I mean, I love technology, but I could probably be doing 12 other things. I think I would have made a pretty good lawyer. I would have done a few other things, but I liked it. I was pretty good at it. And because I was pretty good at it, it fed my passion to be better at it. And so I wanted to become the go-to person no matter what level. These all build on each other. These are things I think about that enabled my career progression throughout my life. Being the person that shows up early, leaves late. Being the go-to. And this really is why I have the title, because when it was, well, who wants to shot my hand up? You're willing to do the work that others aren't. Who wants to stay late and do this server implementation? Who wants to stay late and get this desktop migration over with when you're the guy fixing computers and you're rolling around with your cart? Me. I wanted to be the guy that always my boss looked to as the clutch person that he or she could count on. Then I got to be a manager and director, and I thought it was king of the world. Oh, you get to that title, you get that card, you're leading people. I remember I was at a company called Mariner Healthcare. I had about 100 people under me, and you would have thought I was like Bill Gates, right? I mean, I'm like at this company nobody's ever heard of, leading basically help desk and data center, got my card. I get into my office, I call my wife, and I'm like, they're going to fire me inside of 2 weeks. Have no idea what I'm doing. Completely in over my head, no idea. Imposter syndrome, right? I don't deserve to be here. Everybody has a little bit of it. I think if you don't, you're probably not human. You doubt yourself, right? You get into the role, you're like, I only know 70, 80% of it. You'll figure it out. Dive right in and be confident about saying, I don't know. But I learned how to start telling about the tech story also as a bigger part of how my company made money. You know what helped with that? My MBA at the University of Georgia in Terry College, because this is when I became a director. I graduated in 2003, got promoted to director, not simply because I got my MBA, but because I started taking on more. And I wanted to understand from customer attraction all the way to delivery of a product, how we made money. If you forget technology, if you understand that, then you can start applying your domain, whether it's marketing, technology, human resources, finance, to any part of the value chain. But you got to start understanding how your organization makes money. I got promoted to VP at AIG of our global aerospace and marine units. Again, the day I was promoted, actually Kevin and I were doing some work there together when I got that role. And he handed me my business cards, Dave Hupp, who handed me my business cards, like, congratulations, Mr. Vice President, we voted, and, you know, welcome to the ELT, whatever. Shook his hand. I won't let you down, sir. Went back to my office. Looked for my bottle of Xanax. No, I did not. And I was excited because I really, at this level, I didn't even know what a CIO was, but by the time I got here, I felt more confident that I had a point of view. The things that really set me up well to go beyond that, though, we're focusing on things like people, process, technology, in that order. If you think a world-class CIO, CTO is making his or her career because they are better technologists, that simply is not true. Generally speaking, they are better leaders first. They're leaders of people. They're leaders of strategy. They are able to articulate their vision cleanly, concisely. The technology part's the easy part. Your fingers are already 8 levels removed from the keyboard. You are not taking help desk tickets as a VP, right? You're managing the people who are managing the people who are managing the people who manage the help desk tickets. And so you're looking at things more strategically. And you're more concerned with building culture and trust in an organization. So as I went from that to CIO Plus, my boss, my current boss, his name is Chris Fickery, who's just a really good dude to work for. He joins. I'm thinking, all right, well, I'm out of a job because this is 22. This is not the guy that hired me. I've replaced my teams before, and certainly I fully expect that he was going to replace his ELT. And what I told him was, I said, Chris, look, if I'm not your guy, tell me I'm not your guy, and I'll be here as long as you need. You'll get maximum effort out of me until, you know, my time is done. I'll transition, whatever. Tell me it's 2 weeks, 2 years, 2 months, whatever the hell it is. I'm going to do whatever you need. But if I am your guy, tell me I'm your guy, and let's get some really good stuff done. So I got to know him a little bit. Maybe 1 month later, we were in a one-on-one, and I'm going through my blah, 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 yapping like a crazy person, and he goes, hey, before we get started, of course, I had already started, and I'm off to the races, man. I'm booking. I don't even know if he heard me, but he goes, just before we get started, you're my guy. It was one of 2 ELT members he kept. He goes, Jay, I've spent a lot of time with the SLT, the next layer down. And him saying this, and I will keep this forever. He goes, you're our best leader by a wide margin. And I need you to take on more. And I was really proud of that statement. He didn't say you're the best technologist. He didn't say you know IT. Boy, I'll tell you what, you're really, really good at that M365 or AI stuff. He said, you're our best leader by a wide margin. And I know you can take this on for me. And you'll give it the respect that and the attention that I simply can't. He's the CEO. So very, very proud of that. And so you realize your influence extends beyond technology and beyond your domain. It means you got to work with people you'd maybe not like. How many of you have heard the quote from Abraham Lincoln, I don't like that person. I must get to know him better. There's great wisdom in that. I think when you're young, you look at that and go, hell with that, man. He's a jerk. I really don't like that person. I think taking a pause and realizing that sometimes you just have to lean in and find some common ground. That doesn't mean you're not going to vacation. That doesn't mean you're going to vacation together or go break bread every night. But finding some common ground and just letting the rest of it go really sets you up to be, I think, a collaborative, successful executive. I think human nature is you'll ignore it, you'll avoid it. I don't want to bring her in, him in. He's whatever. I'll leave it with this slide, and these are the things that I have found through my career journey that really matter. I could have put 150 things here, so I promise I've selected 9 that really popped in when I was creating the slide, and I'll talk about them in a second. Then I'm happy to take any questions about journeys, clinical trials, that type of thing. Emotional intelligence, reading the room as an executive. Learning to live to fight another day. When you're in a meeting and you have 3 things you're trying to sell to the board of directors and you see it's going sideways on one of them, take the other 2, execute them flawlessly, and come back for the 3rd. Like, learn to read the room. When to kind of say, you know what, this is probably not the time I want to ask for that. Right? I'm reading the room. I mean, it's just one of many examples. Mentorship. I do a lot of mentoring, both at Terry and through a group called TechBridge here in town, and also at my company. I'm on my 3rd cohort of mentors. I love mentoring. The only limiter that I have really is time to take on more. I learn as much from them, if not more, than they learn from me. But the ability to give back. I am where I am because I've had amazing mentors. The late Ed Steinecke at Coca-Cola, this former CIO who passed many years ago, but was one of my mentors, was amazing. Mike Long at AIG was a great mentor of mine who unfortunately passed 2 years ago. But I've had a number of mentors throughout my life. Rich Daniels, the late dean of or the leader of the EMBA here at Terry. I probably didn't tell him enough how much he meant to me, but he gave a guy a chance to get into the EMBA program that was probably not the best undergraduate student. Let's just say it clearly, I was not the best undergraduate student. And essentially said, much like Chris, put his hand on my shoulder and said, "You're my guy." I found out later that they just needed people who could pay the money, but what are you going to do there? Network. Network is your net worth, blah, 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 blah. Events like this, it's absolutely true. But the key is to give with no expectation of return. You don't show up at an event and go, "What was my ROI from that event?" No, no, no. These are seeds you're planting. Do it with no expectation of return, right? And I promise you it snowballs over time. James realized that, and he's a master networker. He's involved in a couple of different organizations. He and I walk into some of these tech groups, and they know him before they even know me. And I'm like, "What the hell? I've been coming here for 5 years." And he walks in, they're like, "James." I'm like, all right, I'm doing something wrong. This guy's a natural. Operate in the gray. Learn how to, the higher up you go, the more you have to operate with incomplete information. That's why they're paying you the big bucks. Ambiguous environments. There's no playbook sometimes. You got to be cool with that. We've all run into the people that are like, if I don't have every answer, their head spins off their shoulders, and they absolutely cannot function. But what if this happens? I'm like, then it happens, and we'll react to it. You got to be able to work with imperfect information. Courage, put yourself out there. Resilience, you will fail. I fail daily, probably failing right now miserably. But the courage to start again and get back up and not let it bother you. Patience, sometimes you got to play the long game. I remember being overlooked for early roles and then saying, well, what about me? What about me? I just doubled my effort, played the long game, and good things began to happen. Sacrifice, I want to focus on this one. The great Kirby Smart says this: you have to be willing to do things that other people are not willing to do. If your expectation is that you are going to work 38 hours a week, make every game for your kids, cook dinner every night, be able to hit the gym 7 days a week, and do everything you want to in your free time, and still make the C-suite, unless your dad owns the company or your mom, that is highly unlikely. There are examples where that has happened. The other 99.9999% are willing to make the sacrifices necessary to get it done. I work 70 hours a week. Do I have to? Maybe not. Yeah, Jay, you got the brass ring. You're already in the seats. I want to. I love what I do. Still make time for my boys, my wife. Do I make everything I want to? No. We all get the same 24 hours. And then last but not least, empathy. Human beings are working for you. Whatever you do, do it with empathy and kindness. We've all terminated people. We've all been terminated. We know how it feels. We've all had to discipline people. We've all had to tell people their job is changing. Do it with heart. Do it with kindness. Remember that there's a human at the other end of that equation. And all of that really is far more important than whatever this is, the org chart, the title, all of those things. All right, with that, I know we're 9 minutes away from time. Happy to take any questions. Anyone, personal, professionally.
Hey, Jay, Raymond Phillips. Here in Atlanta, I serve as a IT strategist. And one of the things that I had a question for you on is when you were talking about responsible AI, there's this whole concept, especially around Gen AI, about the human in the loop.
Yes.
And I wanted to know how is Clario approaching that concept and how have they implemented it?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, and thank you for bringing that up because I completely was remiss in bringing this up. Today, the FDA generally requires for anything that is going to require scientific interpretation for there to be a human in the loop at some point in the process, right? Before it goes back in before it gets entered into the file. So a human is always in the loop when it comes to scientific interpretation of data that we're collecting. It's different with Gen AI and those types of things where if we have a closed model, there's still there's human oversight, but there's not a human looking at the result of every search or every, obviously interaction. So we actually are very, very rigorous in monitoring for hallucination, those types of things. So a lot of our models are closed for the life of the trial. So if you start with version 1.1 of an algorithm on your trial, through the life of that trial, that algorithm is going to stay consistent through the life of the trial. We don't want to keep change. All it does is introduce kind of ambiguity or variance, and you don't want to do that. So that version for that trial will be consistent. But there's a human if there's scientific interpretation.
Thank you.
Sir.
Hi, Jay. I'm David Kirkland with Salesforce.
We're a customer. Woo!
Yes, absolutely you are.
It's probably 100% of the room is. Yeah. Right.
Not in sales, I'm in product marketing, but the question I have for you, well, thanks first and foremost for the thoughtful presentation, both, from the company standpoint through your personal journey.
Of course.
The question that I have for you is, how are you equipping your organization and others that are adjacent to it to adopt and prepare for all things AI? And in the form of just retooling, reskilling, how are you preparing them?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we're all reading articles about, oh my gosh, my job is going to be replaced. So-and-so's hiring and they're eliminating so-and-so roles because AI can do all of these things. And I love the phrase that's like, AI won't take your job. It's the people who, the no AI who will take your job. And so I think we've been very deliberate about training, but also educating the broader organization on how to use AI, prompt engineering, how it works, tooling that we have, lunch and learns, all of those things, equipping people so that at some point, should they move on, or if there are opportunities in the organization, they are AI literate. So we have this whole track called AI literacy, led by my chief AI officer, a guy named Marko Topalovic, who is joined my team last year when we acquired his company. And it was his idea. He's like, I want to set up a whole like track on AI literacy, not for IT or technology only, for the whole company. Like, I don't want them to fear AI. I want them to lean in and get excited about it. So those are just some of the things that we're doing. We really focus on the quality, privacy, and efficiency of AI more than we do about, hey, we're going to remove people or costs. But look, I mean, I think every company is having a conversation about, can I hire 10% less because Gen AI can handle this for me, or a robot or a bot can handle this for me. So just trying to be honest with the organization as well about what these things do. Where I think their value is, though, is we won't have to continue to scale linearly. It's not about maybe necessarily laying off. It's more about maybe not even having to grow the workforce as fast, because we're growing as a company, which is great. It's a great place to be, right? You're growing as a company. Maybe I don't have to grow my workforce as much because I can leverage the power of AI, which is really kind of the best of both worlds. Sir. Oh, hey, Brandon.
How's it going?
Man, there, I didn't even see you. You were hiding back there. Good to see you.
So you mentioned you work 70 hours a week. We saw the pictures of you at the game.
Yeah.
I know I've known you for years. You're a great father, husband. So this is a question about your organizational skills.
Yeah.
What is it in your weekly routine that allows you to maximize your 24 hours?
I'll tell you the mistake I made. It's a great question. The mistake I've made in the past is not focusing on the quality of sleep that I get, and then not taking a little bit of time to work out. So my wife, Crystal, and I vibe on many things. One of them is the gym. And so she is a workaholic. I found a partner that gets me, and I get her, first of all. Like, she and I both work our butts off. She's amazing at what she does. She's a SVP of the Muscular Dystrophy Association and has like crushed every record they've ever had in terms of their growth and everything. And but she loves to work. But we also love to have a good time. So maximizing my sleep, pushing authority down in my organization. When I joined, I was the only one who could approve certain expenditures in my department. It was ridiculous. I have 1,600 people reporting to me. I'm like, how in the hell am I going to, all of these, the time, I'm like, man. So, as I created my new leadership team, I started pushing down authority and trusting my people. The trust but verify approach. Look, if I have VPs and SVPs that report to me, you're in that role because I trust you. I expect you to tell me when something's blowing up, tell me when things are going well, always here to brainstorm, but I'm not going to micromanage you. I'm not going to come in and ask you 38 different questions in every one-on-one and be like, oh, what about this one thing that has no material impact on anything? All that does, you have to choose to say no to things like that and just say, I'm going to trust people. 98% of the time it's worked out. Sometimes I've made bad hires. The adage of hire slow but fire fast, I think, is appropriate too. If you know somebody's not a fit and you can't change people, then it's time to change people, if you get my drift. And then disconnecting. Like, when I go to a Georgia game, I'm at the Georgia game, and I'm probably, my blood alcohol content, like most Georgia fans, is no. We have a great time, and yeah, I think wherever you are, just be there. Yeah, sir. This man and I served on the Terry board together many, many, many years ago.
That's right.
I mean, we were like 12 or 13 at the
Exactly. It
time.
was maybe the Terry board 1.0. Now it's
Yeah, I know.
3.0 or 4.0. But seems like a pretty complex business model, for at least from my viewpoint. I assume pretty highly regulated too. You talked about the FDA. Have you seen any changes in the regulatory environment over the past year with the new administration? And how's the company facing those challenges?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, regulatory changes. I think at a macro level, we have not seen too much impact to our business from the FDA in particular. In other words, we're not seeing a lot of PDUFA dates or these dates slip too much. What we saw at the end of 23 was a little bit of a, primarily Q3, you saw a hiccup in the biotech funding and some of the macro environments where biotech funding was starting to pull back. But like everything, you had all this pent-up VC money and all of this other pent-up money that was looking to be put to work and deployed. And we're beginning to kind of see those tailwinds manifest. Trump, I mean, he doesn't want to be, he likes to be the man. And so he's not going to let, drug development stop. I mean, certainly putting drug development here in the States and being able to have all those distribution centers is important to him and all of that. And I think most of the large pharmas are doing what he wants them to do. But we're not seeing any real, material impact. If anything, we're seeing, maybe the tailwind starting to pick up again. So we're really optimistic about kind of getting back to the normal flow of trial starts from a few years ago, which will be, really good for us. I think the other thing that I would say really is, look, every organization, ours is no different, could probably stand some optimization. I think the FDA was no different. I think anybody, even if you're not a fan of the administration, which is fine, the way he went about it may not be optimal, but let's put it that way. But you can't argue that some optimization was probably necessary in a few of these organizations. I would have gone about it maybe a little bit differently, but I think some streamlining is probably going to end up being a force positive. And I know we're a little over time, 2 minutes over. We're good? One more question? Okay, is that okay? Anybody? No? Oh, we got one. There we go.
Hello, I'm Sydney Swain. I am a current PMBA student.
Hi.
And we are taking strategic management now. We just got out of IT management, so this is a timely conversation. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
My question is, the question before, you were talking about like kind of your leadership philosophy a little bit. You've given us, what really matters here on the slide. I would like to know like a little bit more about that in terms of like, as a executive leadership or leader, how you kind of like interface with your colleagues on the same level to kind of get on the same page, set the strategy for your company, and how that sort of filters down while also the people like individual contributors and maybe even like line management, like some of the managers that aren't directly reporting to you, how they manage up to also help set strategy.
No, it's such an important question that you ask. I can tell you we're a work in progress, to be honest. We're a work in progress. I think we're improving as an ELT. We're spending a lot more time. We're a very distributed company, right? So even though we're corporately based in Philly, our centers of gravity are all around the world, right? I mean, you have a little bit in Philly, West Coast, Germany, Hungary, et cetera. But for the most part, we're extremely hybrid or fully remote all around the world, which adds a degree of difficulty to what you're talking about, right? So you're dependent on Teams and emails and memos and all of these other things. So it forces you to be a lot more deliberate. And it's easy to say, hey, we were all supposed to get together as an ELT this month, travel crazy, customer commitments, we're just going to push it. We're getting better about not doing that. Enforcing that connection as an ELT, and you first get there and you're rolling your eyes going, man, I have 58 things that are more important than doing this right now. And I promise you, every single time I leave and I'm like, man, that was time well spent. Because even if we're not in a room together, we're in the same office and we're interacting organically. So that starts with just presence. And then in between, weekly meetings on things, being in setting the rules where I can raise my hand and say, I need help, or your team is killing me, or whatever, and creating that safe spot. It all starts there and it begins to cascade throughout the organization. And then being more deliberate about SLT, that next layer communication, and making sure you're very honest with them as much as you can and engaging them. And at first it's hard because you're going to get all the million questions, because if you haven't done it in the past, you're going to be, they're getting new information. They're like, oh my gosh, the curtain's been pulled back and I have all these questions now. And it can be uncomfortable. at the beginning. It's like when you first give somebody budgetary authority and they're like, wait a minute, so-and-so makes what? They don't deserve that. That's blah, 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 blah. You got to deal with all those questions. So people shy away from like being able to, opening the kimono. So we're doing a lot more of that, of just being open and transparent wherever possible with what we're doing. And then cascading throughout. I love spending time with my front line. So I do a lot of town halls, Jay's open office hours for anybody in the company at any level, coffee with Jay, not because I'm so great, it's just I want to be available. I want to be available to somebody who's in a totally different department. Well, why does my desktop suck? I mean, that's a fair question. I mean, I don't know. Let me ask the guy. Get over here and fix her desktop. No. But just anything, right? At their level, that's preventing them from doing their job. Hey, what's our policy on desktop refresh? I get all kinds of questions. Everything from strategic to tactical. But just being authentic and available and open-minded to that has helped quite a bit too. And then having a sense of humor, not let everything be personal and political, because I think it's easy to do that, especially in a remote environment. Well, I know we're at time, but I just want to thank everybody for the awesome questions, and thank you, Terry, College, and Natalie, and everybody for Elise. Where are you? There you are. Okay, what? There she is over there. For keeping me in line along the way, and for the opportunity. It's great to see everybody. Thank you.